We've just had April's Q&A for New World, and actually there's some really important information in here that's sort of semi-exciting. So let's jump in and let's talk about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is, were there any clues, Easter eggs, etc.? Well, the main new Easter egg that I could see, what appears to be a box and some mail. Some people were saying maybe that's a mailbox. To me, it could be some kind of indication of maybe like a daily login reward. Not really sure what's going on with that. The little chipmunk called Melzy, that was there already, and I don't see anything new, but let me know if you do. The first thing that they really talk about in the video is actually matchmaking, and they confirm that it's coming to Outpost Rush and Arena. And the most interesting thing about that is that basically confirms ranked arena in my eyes, because otherwise what's the point in any kind of matchmaking? And I'm a little bit surprised that matchmaking is coming to Outpost Rush. They spoke specifically about meeting people who are as good as you, or in my case, who are as bad as me. I'm not sure how that will work in Outpost Rush, because at the minute when the numbers are small, there's not that many queues, so I don't know if that would really sort of like make a massive difference. The main matchmaking thing I would love to see when it comes to Outpost Rush is the same number of pre-mades should be on each side about. So let's say there were 5 pre-mades queued up in that 40 people, then put 3 on one side and 2 on the other. Now you could get smarter with that, with the size of pre-mades, etc. I don't care what they do, but that needs to be the minimum that happens. I don't like using this word, but it's truly sad in my eyes that that's not happened since the launch of the game. It needs to happen. It should have already happened. Please let it happen with matchmaking. Obviously, skill-based, rank-based, role-based, whatever would maybe be preferable, but pre-mades for me is one that definitely stands out. Arena, it doesn't necessarily mean there's guaranteed ranked arena. It might be that they just do like casual PvP, also sort of like match-made, so that you're not going against super strong or super weak people, in comparison to you, I mean. Or it might mean that we actually just get proper ranked, which would be pretty damn cool. The next thing that they spoke about really was the seasonal story and how, you know, that was sort of going away. Now, I agree with their response here, which was like, basically we wanted the seasonal story to go away because otherwise it might be overwhelming, and I agree with that. But then Dave, who is back in this video by the way, Dave V, comes in and says, actually, we're probably moving away from these seasonal stories because of the amount of resources, and we're going to put the resources elsewhere. They used the phrase procedural content, but basically repeatable procedural content that, you know, will last. Basically, stuff that will stick around and that will be useful for a long time, rather than a seasonal story that nobody really cares about that much. Unless you're like Mr. Lou in my chat. I know some of you care about the seasonal story, but yeah, I think seasons overall have been a failure, and I wouldn't be surprised if seasons go away with the monetization change that might come if and when we get console. But yeah, I think that might be that we're going to get like proper raids, or instead of having a raid, maybe every season or whatever it ends up being, we'll have just new content. That would be very exciting, and if I'm honest, I think it would be better for the game. I think the seasonal model has been mostly a failure. There was obviously questions about the quality of Season 5. They said we failed in Season 5, but we failed in a brand new way, which I guess is something at least. Generally, Scott here says, look, we know we failed last time, we know we said this before, doesn't make it any less true. We need to deliver updates on time and working correctly with minimal bugs. That's true. The more they do that, the more the reputation will change. At the minute, they've not done that enough. It's as simple as that. They need to do it more. They do say that they're going to give the QA team 5 times the amount of time. They also sort of said it's not just up to the QA team, because they need to make sure that they're giving them the right kind of information so that they know what to test. But it sounds like they're trying to shift towards that QA team having more time so that they're not stressed and that they can actually find stuff. That's a nice idea. Obviously, the QA team then needs to actually catch the stuff, which is a whole different conversation, one that I'm not going to have here because it's not really my thing. They did talk about bug fixes that have been in the game from the very start. They say that they are working on them, and there is another push on that this year. There was a focus on that, I think, last year. Obviously, probably didn't go far enough, but they also say they're going to be doing like big updates instead of small little ones that fix those bugs together, because some of them fixing one might affect another and that kind of thing. One little thing they did mention is that cooking apparently now shows where the items are gathered, like the ingredients. They say they'll probably do that for other things, but it's not really a priority, which makes sense. One thing that we've been hearing a lot lately is that some of the older content is going to get scaled up correctly. Specifically, the worm is one that is mentioned. However, I personally don't just want the current worm iteration just to have better rewards. I don't know if that really makes too much sense, but that sounds like what they might be doing. They basically say they're going to buff the worm rewards, they're going to buff the 5-man arena trials, which is funny because they put an artifact behind them but didn't buff the rewards. All the rewards are still sort of like 625. One thing they did mention there is that they're probably going to buff some of the elite chest runs, like the Mia Guard run apparently is like still 625. Literally don't care about chest runs. I know a lot of people like them. I personally think they're not real content. And then one here that is pretty major, which I may have put in the title of the video because I think it is going to be that interesting, is that it appears that Fresh Start servers are confirmed. They're definitely coming. The when, they're keeping a little bit more tight-lipped on that. However, I would say to you that the answer is pretty damn obvious. Or if not obvious, very likely it's going to be when we get the console or the end of year update. If you look at it logically, we had the game release and not really fresh, but you could sort of see it as being fresh if you wanted, but not really fresh. Then we had Brimstone, which was a free update where we got fresh. Then we didn't get fresh with the Elysium Wilds, which was a paid expansion. And then we're likely this year not getting a paid expansion because it's not going to be an expansion. That also might mean that we're getting fresh, and it would make even more sense if that big update and that big announcement includes console, which at this point I'm very confident it does. So fresh, I think, is coming out towards the end of this year. They might do it when they announce console. I'm not sure about it, but personally, if I was a betting man, I would say like October-ish. There were also some questions about wars. They basically admit here that there's just not enough people doing the wars and they want to do something with it. But if I'm honest, it doesn't sound like it's coming this year. The way they were sort of like talking about it, it definitely sounds like it's going to be something in the future and probably not for the console expansion, non-expansion release. Basically, definitely sounded like it's not coming this year, but it's something they're aware of. Dave did mention that actually the war meta itself is a little bit stale and maybe that's not something they're happy with. But I don't think they should change the meta of the game because of wars, because one of their next stats is, depending on how you slice the player population, apparently only around 2% of people compete in wars, and that is a very small percentage indeed. And my opinion is not changing, it's actually reinforced at this point, that I think the absolute bare minimal effort should be spent on wars because I don't think enough people do it. And yeah, that seems to be proven to be the case. Sorry if you can hear my kid in the background. She's having a bath out. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. I'm a little bit surprised that we're not going to have any major war changes when we get console. I sort of feel like that would be the most perfect time to do it. And especially if it's like 2% of the player base. With all due respect, you could sacrifice them for the greater good. And would they be that missed? I don't know. I would be sad to see the war players go. I don't hate the 2% of players, right? But if they're only here for the war, and it's only 2% of players, then they're not really contributing that much to the wider game in that sense. I do think they are actually quite big drivers for the market, probably also a little bit of RMT, but I think Outpost Rush probably does more for that than the wars. I still want the war players to have fun, but if it makes sense for the whole game to have massive sweeping changes there, then they should definitely change it. They shouldn't just remove it, by the way, I'm being a little bit facetious there. They should just make some sweeping whole-scale changes, and they should probably have done it this year, but it sounds like they're still discussing that, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. I'd rather see some movement here, and I think the console release would make perfect sense. Again, console not actually confirmed, but it just makes sense at this point. Overall, it was an okay dev Q&A for what they can deliver us. Nothing really to be angry about, nothing really to be overly thrilled about. Fresh Start and Matchmaking is good news, but nothing crazy at this point. One thing they did say, which I forgot to mention, they're actually slowing down on the dev updates. We're not going to get them once every week. The next one is actually in 2 weeks. And that makes perfect sense because there's just not enough to talk about until we get the big update. Something I think they should have done probably 3 months ago. I think they're a little bit slow with this one. If they're having a planned cooldown and your community is going to get angry, then you should probably not make pointless videos, let's be honest. So I think that's a good change. I hope they ramp that back up quickly enough. Once we actually get the update and the news, then that's when we actually want to be hearing about it and talking and listening to them. So please do that. For now, if you want to support me, then the very best way is to become a Patreon member. Other than that, you can hit like and subscribe and all that kind of jazz, sure. But you can come and follow me over on Twitch. We'll be talking about this tomorrow. I'll also be streaming the Ashes of Creation dev update tomorrow, I think. So come and give me a follow over there. For now, have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye. Bye.